I want to take this segment as an opportunity to once again refute, debunk the dishonest talking point that is all too common in Republican spaces right now about Joe Biden opening the border. He has an open border policy, or he's running in the radical left Marxist direction, and all these different things when it comes to the southern border, immigration policy, etc. And now I have a bit of recent news here for you, and that's the second thing that is important in this segment, just to update you on this recent federal court ruling in regard to the Biden administration's border policy that happens to be important for what it is, and it emphasizes the very opposite point than the one Republicans want to make about Biden's border policy. And so much so that, as we'll get to, immigrants' rights activists and groups are saying that Biden's border policy is too similar to Donald Trump's, but Republicans say that he's this communist open the border. Okay, so here's this from the LA Times on this news that we got recently. Federal court blocks Biden asylum restrictions. A federal judge in Oakland on Tuesday blocked a Biden administration rule that limits migrants' access to asylum at the southern border, casting doubt on the future of a key policy aimed at limiting crossings. The order from federal judge John S. Teagar was appointed by President Obama, won't take effect for 2 weeks. The Biden administration is expected to appeal quickly, first to the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, then, if unsuccessful, to the U.S. Supreme Court. The policy, which restricts access to asylum for migrants who come through a third country on their way to the U.S. without applying for protections, is the centerpiece of the Biden administration's efforts to reduce the number of migrants crossing without authorization each month. A few things before diving into the second article we'll cover on this. The policy, essentially, if you don't go through the ways that are outlined by the Biden administration using this new app they've rolled out, or they're encouraging people to use, or you go through a third country, but you don't attempt to get asylum protections in that third country. So not Mexico, obviously not the United States, but if you go through any other one, so if you're not coming directly from Mexico and you don't attempt to get asylum protections there, then you can't attempt to get asylum protections, with some exemptions, with the United States. And if you took away those exemptions, this policy is almost identical to a Trump era policy that was also knocked down in the courts. And the Biden administration is saying the exemptions make it in compliance with U.S. law, but immigrant rights groups say otherwise, as the Associated Press writes. Immigrant rights groups that sued argue it was a violation of U.S. law that protects the right to asylum regardless of how a person enters the country. The group said it forced migrants to seek protection in countries that don't have the same robust asylum system and human rights protections as the United States, and leaves them in a dangerous limbo. They also argued that the CBP-1 app that I mentioned, the government wants migrants to use, doesn't have enough appointments and isn't available in enough languages. So, as we talk about, so many real problems here, and people are attempting to put forward solutions, and some of them are wrong and some of them are flawed, and all of that I think we could have a good faith discussion about. It's really hard, though, when almost half of our political contributors to that conversation seem to just blatantly lie about what's going on. And so how do we even get to what would be an ideal immigration reform policy? What would be an ideal border policy? How do we manage the border up until we have a more ideal immigration policy where there's more appointments on the app, where more resources are allocated? All of that, it's hard to even have those discussions when we're first having to explain, no, Biden hasn't opened the border. And so that's one of my goals, is to make sure those dishonest talking points are addressed. So let me say, as you're seeing with this reporting, no, Biden is not doing the things that Republicans say he's doing. He's actually doing so far in line with what you would think they would want that he's also getting knocked down in the courts, temporarily held right now, waiting for appeals, as did Trump with a very similar policy. But they'll still perpetuate the talking points. And I won't get into now, because it's less of the purpose of this segment, as I have in the past, what my ideal reforms are and investments and ways to deal with the border and ways to deal with immigration more broadly. But there are discussions about solutions that are important, namely investing properly in our legal immigration process, expanding how many legal immigrants we can process efficiently, and of course, investing properly in a southern border that is properly secured in all of it. But How do we even do that when, again, the second side of the coin of the conversation is a bunch of right-wingers saying that Biden's opened the border and is attempting to get rid of laws when it comes to our southern border? It's absurd. Instead, we should have a humane approach that has the interest of asylum seekers, of migrants in mind, and of course, of the United States in mind, and attempts to balance all the different variables that are at play here that are very complex. That's why this has been an issue for a long time, to yield the best outcome. But we haven't seen a robust immigration reform bill successfully get through Congress in so long because of the dishonest talking points, because of very often Republicans blocking proper action, not because it's an unsolvable problem. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to be a part of what makes this show possible, plus get access to the full video version of the show hours before all the clips are able to be uploaded to the YouTube channel, plus get the bonus show on the weekends, you can do so by going to lukebeasleyshow.com/membership. That's lukebeasleyshow.com/membership, and there's a link in the description.